Assalamu alaikum dear students. I hope you all are fine and safe. I am Dr. S.M. Ali Tirmizi, your teacher and guide of Corporate Governance course. Today we will discuss chapter number 8, that is executive compensation and incentives. The main topics that we will cover in this chapter are listed in the next slide, and I am hopeful that you will learn all these concepts and will find this video lecture useful to clear concepts, topics of chapter number 8 of corporate governance. The major topics that we will discuss in chapter number 8 are: number 1 is introduction of the chapter. Topic number 2 is powers of board in Pakistan. In this topic, I'll discuss Companies Act 2017 of Pakistan. There are multiple important factors that has to be discussed with you. Then in this chapter, topic number 3 is salary and compensation of CEO in Pakistan. Topic number 4 is banks lead in compensation for executives in Pakistan. In this topic, I'll discuss Dawn's article and its details. Topic number 5 that we'll discuss in this chapter is relating the controversy over executive compensation. Topic number 6 is relating components of compensation. Then topic number 7 that we'll discuss is relating determining compensation. And topic number 8 is compensation levels. Furthermore, in this chapter, we'll discuss another important topic, that is relating ratio of CEO pay to other top executives pay. Topic number 10 is relating compensation mix. In this topic, I'll discuss what type of compensation plans that has to be adopted by a firm. Topic number 11 is relating short-term and long-term incentives. And then the topic number 12 is benefits and perquisites. Topic number 13 is relating compensation disclosure. This is very important for an organization. Then the last topic that we'll discuss in this chapter is relating say on pay. At the end of this lecture, I'll also discuss with you what type of reading assignment you have to complete by using Microsoft Teams class platform, and the quiz details. This quiz will be relating chapter number 7 that I have discussed earlier. In this chapter, we will examine the executive compensation and incentives. These topics that I have discussed in an earlier slide are important because executive officers develop the corporate strategy and business model, as well as they oversee daily management of the firm. Therefore, for their daily hard work, executives require monetary compensation for their work. Thus, compensation packages must be sufficient in terms of their level and the structure to attract, retain, and motivate qualified executives to create shareholder or stakeholder value. Powers of board in Pakistan. The Companies Act 2017 of Pakistan clearly explain the powers of board. This power of board is the section 183 under part 7 relating management and administration at page number 94 of this act. It has been written clearly that the board shall exercise the following powers on behalf of the company and shall do so by means of a resolution passed at their meeting. These powers authorized to be exercised are: number 1, to issue shares; number 2, to issue debentures or any instrument in the nature of redeemable capital; number 3 is to borrow money otherwise than on debentures; number 4 is to invest the funds of the company; number 5 is to make loans; number 6 is to authorize a director or the firm of which he is a partner or any other partner of such firm or a private company of which he is a member or director to enter into any contract with the company for making sale, purchase or supply of goods or rendering services with the company. Number 7 is to approve financial statements. Number 8 is to approve bonus to employees. Number 9 is to incur capital expenditures on any single item or dispose of a fixed asset in accordance with the limits as may be specified. Furthermore, in this Act 2017, it is also mentioned, it is clearly mentioned that what CEO has to do. So CEO related details are given on page number 302 of Companies Act 2017, and these details are relating CEO, which explains that the directors of the company in Pakistan may appoint a person to be the chief executive of the company and vest in him such powers and functions as they deem fit in relation to the management and administration of the affairs of the company, subject to their general supervision and control. The chief executive is not already a director, if in this case, shall be deemed to be a director of the company and be entitled to all the rights and privileges and subject to all the liabilities of that office. Now, in the topic relating salary and compensation of CEO in Pakistan, I have shared a snapshot of a website relating pay scale. So, according to a website that is this payscale.com, an average chief executive officer salary in Pakistan is rupees 81 lakh 50,000, and additionally a bonus of rupees 1 lakh 97,742 plus profit sharing of rupees 200,000 is being paid as a compensation package. However, the minimum salary is Pak rupees 214k, median is Pak rupees 8 million, and highest is Pak rupees 29 million. So, according to these statistics, CEO in Pakistan is handsomely paid by the companies on average. These pay and perk packages for executives in Pakistan are mostly performance based, and an executive has to prove his or her worth to claim such a hefty compensation from the board of a particular company. Now I have shared with you another facts relating the salary and compensation of CEO in Pakistan. This is another website relating Glassdoor. So according to this website, it has been defined that the average base pay of the CEO in Pakistan equals rupees 1 lakh 50,000 per month. However, on the lowest side, average pay is rupees 40,000, and on the highest side, CEO can draw rupees 11 lakh 50,000 per month. So it depends on the nature of the business and the market worth of the company to decide the overall pay and compensation of a CEO. Now, in this topic that is letting banks lead in compensation for executives in Pakistan, I have shared with you the details relating an article published in Dawn. This article explained that the pay and perks for the man holding the top job, that is, CEO or MD, vary from company to company. So, in this article, the total compensation received by top bosses in Pakistan of mostly all the banks operating in Pakistan vary from bank to bank. However, according to this article, a random selection of executive pay and compensation suggested that the presidents of banks are the most handsomely rewarded in Pakistan. On average, according to Mr. Shaukat Tareen, former finance minister of Pakistan and now advisor to Silk Bank, told that a bank president could be presumed to earn between rupees 70 million to rupees 100 million a year, and bonuses are paid at 50 to 100% of the yearly pay packages. In addition to managerial compensation, most banks and large firms in Pakistan also offer house rent, utilities, medical leave, and reimbursements, free use of bank's car, household equipment, post retirement benefits, and free membership of clubs. For example, Nestle Pakistan gave their CEO rupees 81.1 million in 2015. Bestway Cement paid rupees 24 million, and OGDCL paid rupees 39.4 million to the CEO as compensation. In this case, it is also worth mentioning that it is mandatory for listed companies to disclose the compensation paid to CEOs, directors, executives in their annual reports. For the financial year 2015, President of United Bank Limited earned a sum of rupees 127 million, MCB rupees 86 million, HBL rupees 75 million, Bank Al Falah rupees 97 million, while the President of the National Bank of Pakistan received an aggregate rupees 71 million, including managerial compensation of rupees 42 million. Now we'll discuss another topic that is relating the controversy over executive compensation. Executive compensation had long been a controversial topic in America and around the globe. In the United States during 1930s, beside economic depression in progress, enhanced disclosure laws mandated by the Securities and Exchange Commission of America generated popular outrage and debate over some executive compensation packages. American companies including General Motors, American Tobacco, National City Bank were targeted because executives of these companies had received compensation in excess of $1 million. However, beyond 1980s, executive compensation shifted away from fixed salaries and annual bonuses towards variable pay that was tied to long-term performance targets and stock options. In the 1990s and 2000s, the widespread adoption of stock options accelerated the trend, and according to Wall Street Journal, most of the major American companies' executives had received compensation in excess of $500 million. However, critics believe that current CEO compensation levels are not justified based on performance and value creation, but are instead indicative of a market failure. This fact is basically due to defects in the underlying governance structures that enable executives to influence their boards. Now we'll discuss topic number 6, that is relating components of compensation. The compensation committee of the board of directors recommends the compensation of the CEO and other senior executives. This work is typically performed in consultation with the human resources and finance departments and involving third-party compensation consultants. These compensation packages are approved by a vote of the independent directors of the full board of directors. In this case, a vote of shareholders must generally approve equity-based compensation plans such as stock option plans and restricted stock awards. These compensation plans normally includes the fair value of the total compensation awarded to the CEO and other named officers in a company. A compensation plan serves three primary purposes. First, it must attract the right people, those who have the skill set, experience, and behavioral profile. Second, it must be sufficient to retain those individuals, otherwise, they will leave to work at another organization. Third, it must provide the right incentives to motivate them to perform appropriately. Furthermore, on the topic relating components of compensation, the executive compensation package generally includes some or all of the following elements. Number one is annual salary. Number two is annual bonus. Number three is stock options. Number four is restricted stock. Fifth one is performance shares, units. Six is perquisites. Seven is contractual agreements. Number eight is benefits. Now I'll discuss them one by one. Annual salary. It's a fixed cash payment made evenly during the course of the year. Number two, annual bonus. It's an additional payment, usually in the form of cash awarded if the yearly performance of the company exceeds specific financial and non-financial targets. The size of the bonus is commonly expressed as a percentage of base salary. Number three is stock options. This is basically the right to buy shares in the future at a fixed exercise price, generally equal to the stock price on the grant date. Number four is restricted stock. This is an outright grant of shares that are restricted in terms of transferability and are subject to a time-based vesting schedule. Number fifth is performance shares. These are equity or cash awards granted only after specific financial and non-financial targets are met during a 3 to 5 years time period. Number 6 is perquisites. These are other amenities purchased or provided by the company, such as personal use of company car or airplane, club memberships or home, etc. Number 7 is contractual agreements. This is basically the employment contractual details of the offered compensation packages to the employees. Number 8 is benefits. These are the other benefits provided with employment, such as health insurance, retirement plan, etc., to the executives. Now class, Watch an online video relating what are the major guiding principles of executive compensation.
What are the guiding principles? The guiding principles are, there's two basic elements to them. We have a set of four overarching principles, and then 70 some operational principles, and they go together. And the four overarching principles are purpose, alignment, accountability, and engagement. And those have a framework for everything we do in executive compensation. The operating principles get into the details, in some cases into the weeds, but there's a lot of weeds that we have to get into in this profession. And they're also divided into several different categories as well. Some having to do with governance, some having to do with competitive benchmarking and peer groups, some having to do with incentive design. So purpose is sort of the overarching of the overarching principles. And purpose is what we ultimately always try to orient to for the organization. And it's what we want to orient our executive compensation programs to. And purpose is, why does this company exist? But we also include mission. What are we here to do? Our strategy, specifically what we're trying to achieve, and what are our objectives and how we're going to measure that, both on an annual basis and over the long term. So alignment is probably the most important principle in executive compensation, because at the end of the day, the main thing we're trying to do with executive compensation is to align the interests of management with the interests of the owners and with the overall purpose and objectives and strategy of the company. So the incentive plans are a key part of creating that alignment, to pay managers to do what the owners want them to do and to pay them for achieving the strategy and objectives of the company. Secondly, alignment means to create alignment, commonality of interest throughout the whole company, not just in the executives, but throughout the entire organization and across geographies. So accountability is one of the overarching principles, because one of the main things that we're doing with executive compensation is establishing perhaps the core accountability structure in the whole organization. Compensation and incentives are the main way, or one of the main ways, through which the company sets its objectives, communicates those to executives and other employees, measures their performance, and then holds them accountable to the achievement of those objectives, and then rewards them appropriately for doing it. And we don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that when we're establishing and governing executive compensation, we're creating that accountability structure through the whole organization. So the reason that engagement is one of the four overarching principles is because, particularly at the board level, it's the principle that we often forget about. On the other hand, when we're working with human resources, it may be the most important principle, because engagement is all about motivation. One of the main things we're trying to do with an incentive program is to motivate people, to harness their energy and their creativity and their drive and their hard work towards a set of goals and objectives, and to get everybody to do it together, to create that esprit de corps. Also, we have to make sure the whole program is competitive. We have to make sure that it is, enough to attract the people we need and to retain them over time, which is all part of engagement.
Now we'll discuss topic number 7, that is determining compensation. The compensation committee and the board of directors are responsible for determining the level of compensation paid to the CEO and other officers. They must also select the mix of short-term and long-term elements to achieve a payout structure that is consistent with the firm's strategy. This process might work as follows. First, it is important to determine how much value the company expects to create during a reasonable time horizon. Then determine how much of this value should be attributable to the efforts of the CEO. Finally, determine what percentage of that value should be finally offered to the CEO as compensation. Now we'll further discuss important points relating the topic determining compensation. It is well known fact that the most boards determine compensation levels by benchmarking their CEO's pay against that of a set of companies that are comparable in size, industry, and geography, that is relating their peer group. The compensation committee also needs to make sure that the level of pay suggested by the benchmark has a similar level of risk as the compensation package being considered for the executive. The research studies that are or that have been conducted relating whether peer groups are selectively designed to extract excess pay are mixed. Now class, I'll discuss an example relating benchmarking compensation at Kruger and Safeway. Kruger and Safeway are two grocery stores operating in United States. These are the chains that are direct competitors and fairly similar in terms of corporate strategy. However, they use very different peer groups for compensation benchmarking. Has a much smaller peer group composed of mostly retail and grocery companies, but Safeway has a broader peer group consisting of department stores, food and consumer product manufacturers, and clothing retailers. In 2013, the Kruger's CEO total compensation was $11.1 million. However, in the case of Safeway, that was $11.3 million. The revenues were 96.7 billion of Kruger. In the case of Safeway, that was 44.2 billion. The net income of Kruger in 2013 was $1.5 billion. However, in the case of Safeway, that was $0.6 billion. You can also see the peer group of these two companies. Now what you have to do, your task is to visit the official website of Kroger and write about their current practices relating executive compensation. You can submit your work after a week on Microsoft Teams corporate governance class platform. Relating the example I have discussed earlier, this is basically the executive summary of compensation discussion and analysis, which I have extracted from the annual report of Kroger 2018. This compensation discussion analysis provides a discussion and analysis of the company's compensation program, letting named executive officers for the 2018 fiscal year that was ended February 2, 2019. The names of these executive officers were Rodney, Michael, Christopher, Robert. The summary of key compensation practices by the company are aligned pay and performance, significant share ownership guidelines of 5 into salary for their CEO, multiple performance matrices under their short and long-term performance-based plans, discourage excessive risk-taking, balance between short-term and long-term compensation to discourage short-term risk-taking at the expense of long-term results, engagement of an independent compensation consultant, robust clawback policy, ban on hedging, pledging, and short sales of Kroger securities, limited prerequisites. The seventh topic of this lecture is compensation levels. In this slide, the topic of compensation level explain that the calculation for compensation reflects the expected fair value of compensation awarded during the year. The fair value awarded is the value of compensation that the committee intends to pay to the executive in a given year. It measures equity-based incentives according to their expected value, with restricted stock valued at current market prices and stock options valued using an approved valuation method. Therefore, in this context, there are three basic ways to measure executive compensation. Number one is expected compensation. Number two is earned realizable compensation. And number three is realized compensation. Now I will discuss these measures one by one. Number one, expected compensation. As I have explained earlier, it represents the value of compensation promised to an executive in a given year. Number two, earned realizable compensation. It represents the total value of compensation that an executive earned the right to keep as cash is delivered and vesting restrictions are removed. Number three, realized compensation. It represents the total value of compensation that an executive takes home as cash in a given year. Now I'll further discuss few important points relating compensation levels topic. It is mentioned very clearly that company size, along with industrial sector, is a major determinant of executive compensation levels. According to the research study of Gabex and Landier that was conducted in the year 2008, it has been reported that an increase in company size can almost entirely explain the increase in executive compensation. Another research study conducted on the topic concluded that the rise in CEO compensation is a simple mirror of the rise in the value of large US companies since 1980s. Now we'll discuss topic number 9 of the lecture, that is relating ratio of CEO pay to other top executive pay. There are several factors that might contribute to pay inequity within the executive group. First of all, from economic perspective, the value creation by top executive, especially by CEO, is substantially higher. Therefore, in this context, the success of a very complex company might more heavily rely on the efforts of the CEO. So it might be appropriate to have a greater pay differential to attract a qualified leader. However, according to tournament theory perspective, which was proposed by Lazare and Rosen in 1981, senior executives not only serve a current operating function but also compete in a tournament for promotion. This means pay inequity serves as an incentive for executives to compete more aggressively for promotion. If they are successful, they receive a large payoff in terms of compensation. In the case of management entrenchment, which indicate large pay differential, shows that the management of the firm shield itself from market forces and get significant pressures to perform under the guidance of board, shareholders, and stakeholders. In this way, large differentials might indicate that the CEO is able to engage in rent extraction, which the corporate governance system has not adequately controlled against. This pay inequity might also a source of discouragement for executives who believe that they are not fairly compensated, and this is the demotivating factor for these executives. The 10th topic of this lecture is compensation mix. Now I'll discuss this topic with you. This is the responsibility of the compensation committee to decide how to structure the compensation package to ensure that it provides incentives that are in line with the company's objectives. So this is very important for the companies to take into consideration. Therefore, this is done by arriving at a mix of cash, equity, and other benefits with appropriate performance targets to attract, retain, and motivate qualified executive officers across both short-term and long-term horizons. Now class, watch an online video relating understanding compensation mix from human resource management perspective.
A firm's strategy will affect the pay mix it offers to employees. Many companies are reconsidering the amount of base pay versus variable pay that's included in employee compensation packages and considering more incentive pay plans. Let's take a look at the compensation mix. A problem with base pay is that it ties the firm to fixed dollar amounts that becomes larger as cost of living adjustments and merit pay are added to the base. So, before we discuss the compensation mix further, we need to discuss the concepts of cost of living adjustment and merit increases. These are two common methods of increasing employee-based pay. As a result of inflation, many firms give their employees a cost of living adjustment known as COLAs to offset the increases in the prices of goods and services they purchase and keep salaries from lagging behind the external market. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is used as the basis for determining the amount of a COLA. Merit increases are not automatic. They're awarded based on how well an individual has performed. Like a COLA, however, a merit increase permanently raises a person's wages. Even if the worker's performance declines, the previous merit increase still remains as part of his or her base pay. To offset the permanency of merit increases, quite a few firms are increasing the amount of variable pay they offer to employees. In fact, a lot of managers believe that offering employees more variable versus base pay can effectively shape their behavior. Variable pay can include bonuses, commissions, stock options, and other forms of monetary rewards that do not become a permanent part of a person's base pay. Overall, a company's strategy will determine the mix of base pay and variable pay and the mix of monetary and non-monetary rewards it offers.
Now class will discuss another topic, that is short-term incentives. Short-term incentives offer an annual payment, usually cash, for achieving predetermined performance objectives. The size of the bonus is expressed in terms of a target award. Most companies define the size of the target award as a percentage of the base salary. For example, the target award might be equal to 200% of the base salary. We will discuss now long-term incentives. In the case of long-term incentives, they are basically added to the compensation mix to encourage executives to select long-term investments that increase shareholder value. Therefore, keeping this argument in view, long-term incentives extend the time horizon of the executive and mitigate the natural tendency of a risk-averse executive to reject risky investments. For example, as executives approach retirement, they might be expected to reduce a company's investment in research and development to hit earnings targets that increase their own annual bonus. Because the annual bonus, along with salary, is a key input in calculating their pension benefits. The CEO will benefit by receiving larger annual payments throughout retirement. This is the part of the reason firms put hold until or past retirement features in stock option and restricted stock programs. That's why if CEO rejects valuable R&D to boost the value of his or her pension, he or she will eventually lose the value of options and shares owned. This slide is relating mini case study of Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman Corporation is an American company, the company which is basically solving the toughest problems in space, aeronautics, defense, and cyberspace to meet the ever-evolving needs of their customers worldwide. The firm's 90,000 employees are defining possible every day using science, technology, and engineering to create and deliver advanced systems, products, and services. Moving on with the case study related to Northrop Grumman, the details relating annual incentives offered by this company is being explained in this slide. In 2013, Northrop Grumman used the following financial performance matrices in calculating the annual performance bonus for the CEO and other named executive officers of the company. Pension adjusted operating margins is calculated as operating margin rate, operating margin divided by sales, adjusted for net financial accounting standards, cost accounting standards, pension income or expense. The net FAS to CAS pension adjustment is the difference between pension expense determined in accordance with GAAP under financial accounting standards, and pension expense allocated to the business segments under the US government cost accounting standards. Free cash flow conversion is calculated as free cash flow provided by operating activities before the after-tax impact of discretionary pension contributions divided by net income from continuing operations. Awards. Book to bill represents the total new contracts awarded to the company during the year, net of backlog adjustments divided by sales during the year. Pension adjusted net income is calculated as net income adjusted for net FAS2 CS pension income or expense after tax. The company also used the following non-financial performance matrices, noting that non-financial matrices can only reduce and not raise the bonus. Customer satisfaction, measured in terms of customer feedback. Quality, measured using program-specific objectives within each of their sectors. Engagement as reported by employees in a company-wide engagement survey. Diversity, measured in terms of improving representation of females and people of color in mid-level and senior level management positions. Safety, measured by recordable injuries and lost workday rate associated with those injuries. Environmental sustainability, measured in terms of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, solid waste, and water utilization. The 12th topic of this lecture is benefits and perquisites. The CEO compensation package generally includes a mix of benefits, perquisites, and other contingent payments. The value of these awards is not negotiable. The research evidence on the incentive value of these payments is quite mixed. According to a research study conducted by Rajan and Wolf in 2006, it has been reported that companies consistently use perks as a means to improve executive productivity. In another study by Sundram and Yermak in 2007, benefit pension plans can be seen as risk-reducing form of compensation that offsets the risk-seeking incentives of equity compensation in a company. The 13th topic of this lecture is compensation disclosure. The company's compensation philosophy, the elements of the compensation program, the total compensation offered, performance metrics used to award variable pay, and other details of the company's compensation program need to be disclosed properly to the investors. However, beside all these SEC instructions, companies largely do not fully disclose compensation details to the investors. Therefore, in this regard, survey data finds that institutional investors are dissatisfied with the quality of information they receive about executive compensation in the annual proxy reports. This fact is also reported by the Rock Center for Corporate Governance at Stanford University that fewer than half, that is 38%, of institutional investors believe that the executive compensation is clearly and effectively disclosed in the annual reports. So this fact clearly says that institutional investors are not being informed properly, letting the compensation plans and compensation being offered to the executives. Now class, watch an online video relating governance specialist view of compensation plan disclosure by the companies.
I'm Matt Bishar with REIT.com here in Boca Raton, Florida for REITwise 2014. Joining me is Jim Hanks, partner with Venable. Jim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to be here, Matt.
Here at REITwise, you moderated a panel focused on Say on Pay, which is obviously a hot topic now. What steps do you recommend that a REIT takes to win its Say on Pay vote?
Well, first and foremost, the REIT, through its compensation committee, should design a good plan with the key emphasis being on pay for performance and also rigorous application of whatever metrics it is that the compensation committee thinks will best promote pay for performance. So starting with a good plan is first and foremost. After that, it's important that the compensation committee run the process as much as possible and be perceived as running the process. Third, I think I would say that, and I haven't seen this as much as I would have expected to, I think that the compensation committee has got to get very intensely focused with its independent consultants on whether the consultants think that this plan that has been designed by the comp committee with the consultants' advice will get the requisite vote for say on pay purposes. And so I would encourage comp committees to really get the comp consultant to go on the line and say, yes, we think that this will result in a favorable vote. And of course, for this purpose, a favorable vote really means 70%, because that's what ISS benchmarks as the percentage that they want to see if they're not going to drill down further into the plan. And finally, I would say that detailed, transparent disclosure of the comp plan and its effects is very, very important.
And what are some of the pitfalls that companies need to be wary of in terms of structuring executive compensation?
Well, I guess the first pitfall I would say is not doing any of the things that I just mentioned. But after that, I would say that to the extent that a comp committee wants to depart from what is accepted industry practice, either in terms of the substance of the plan itself or the process by which the plan is arrived at or the disclosure, it should explain fully why it is departing in those regards. And in particular, to the extent that the comp committee thinks that there's something differentiating about its company or its CEO or any of its named executive officers that result in some sort of departure from accepted substance and process, it should explain the differentiators fully so that the shareholders can appreciate why it is that the committee is recommending something that may not be fully congruent with accepted practice. And finally, I think it's very important for the comp committee and the board to keep a sense of perspective. The ultimate goal of any REIT board is to act in the best interests of the company, not to get a high percentage on the say on pay vote, not to get a high quick score rating, not even to be reelected. The goal, and this is very clearly expressed in the Maryland statutes and elsewhere, is to achieve what the directors believe is in the best interest of the company. So if the directors think the particular comp plan, even though it may not meet ISS's or other people's views of what's a best-in-class comp plan, if they think that plan is the right plan for this company and this group of executives at this time, then they should do it and fully explain it and let the ISS chips fall where they may.
Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to see you again, Matt. Thanks.
For more on this and other REIT news and analysis, be sure to visit REIT.com.
The last topic, that is topic number 14 of this lecture, is say on pay. Say on pay is the practice of granting shareholders the right to vote on a company's executive or director compensation program at the annual shareholder meeting. Say on pay is a relatively recent phenomenon, having first been required by the United Kingdom in 2003 and subsequently adopted in countries including Netherlands, Australia, Sweden, and Norway. The say on pay practice explains that the executive compensation plan or program is usually submitted to shareholders for approval. This process increases the accountability of corporate directors to shareholders and leads to more efficient contracting with rewards more closely aligned with corporate objectives and performance. Article reading assignment. Class, you have to use Microsoft Teams Corporate Governance class platform to read an article 8.8. After reading, use Microsoft Word online and type one page review in your own words of the article and turn in your review article under Assignments tab. This article is being related to Harvard Business Review and its title is How to Tie Executive Compensation to Sustainability. This article has already been uploaded on Microsoft Teams Corporate Governance class platform under Files tab. The submission deadline will be mentioned and you will see it on class platform of Microsoft Teams. The quiz of chapter number 8 will be on Microsoft Teams between 4th to 8th of May 2020. This is the end of lecture number 8. I hope class you have understood the topics and concepts that we have studied in this lecture. Inshallah, I will see you in the next lecture relating chapter number 9. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.